Hi guys, it's me Amari and I have a dark confession. Despite me being lactose intolerant, every Friday I still try a new cheese from Trader Joe's. Yes, I do know that I blow through a box of lactate every month, but instead of just saying no to the cheese today, I decided to take it up a notch. We're going French. I'm going to teach you guys how to make a baguette today, and it's all part of my mission to use this 5 pound bag of flour to make as many things as possible. So let's head to the kitchen. Hi guys, it's me editing Amari, and I want to let you know that you'll be seeing me a few times in this video, because despite me being all knowing and a master at my craft, I do need to correct some of the things that I said, so don't be scared when you see me pop up. And don't forget to subscribe. To make your life a whole lot easier, the first thing I recommend doing is activating your yeast. Normally I just put my water into a bowl and put it in the microwave for like 30 seconds. And add a teaspoon of sugar and then all of my yeast, and then I let it sit and bubble for 10 minutes while I mix together all of my dry ingredients. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. And then I just go ahead and pour all of my sugar into my scratchy bowl of warm water and mix everything up until it's fully dissolved. Do this before you add in the yeast. I'm using active dry yeast, so I do have to activate this for 10 minutes, but if you're using like an instant rise, you can just put it straight into the flour. And I'm gonna measure this in 1/4 teaspoons because I can't exactly measure a half a packet off the top of my head. So just bear with me right here. If you're making the 2 baguettes, just use the whole packet. If you're making one like me, just use half. I've always thought dry yeast looked kind of weird, but don't forget to mix it up well once you put it into the water, and it'll be ready when it's really bubbly and foamy looking. My other life hack is taking this bowl into the oven while I do everything else and letting the yeast sit and stay warm, because it normally helps it rise a little bit more, or at least wake it up a little bit more. When I first started learning how to make bread, I could never get my yeast to activate for some reason, so I started letting it sit in the stove so it'd have a little warm spot with the light on, and it made a huge difference, and I haven't messed up with activating my yeast since then. In the description for this video, I have this entire recipe in both cups and grams for those who like to measure. I didn't feel like getting out my scale, so if you're using the cups form of this recipe, just make sure you're scraping down the top and leveling it out with the back of a butter knife. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add in my 1 teaspoon of salt. This part isn't necessarily required, but I do recommend mixing all of your dry ingredients together pretty well with the whisk before you add in any of your liquids. Or if you have a sifter, you can just run it all through a sifter to make sure everything's evenly distributed. This is really important, but my yeast doesn't look as foamy as it normally does, and yours may look more foamy or not as foamy, but as long as you see those little bubbles in the top, you know your yeast is alive to some degree, so it's still good to go ahead and use it, but you're going to want to make sure that you get it into the warmest spot in your house possible while you're waiting for your bread to rise, so it can still do its thing. Now you can just go ahead and pour your yeast and all of your liquids over into your flour. Now for this part, I'm just gonna grab a wooden spoon because we're just gonna mix everything together until it's shaggy. I'm gonna skip through this part a little bit because I actually hate this sound so much. If your dough is still dry, do not be alarmed. Just add in about 2 tablespoons of water, 1 tablespoon at a time, and just keep mixing. It's gonna look really wet and might be a little bit sticky, but you really just want it to kind of look like this and be in a bit of a wet mass. It's supposed to be a high hydration dough, because if it's not high hydration, you won't be able to get those bubbles on the inside and get that like crispy crust. I always sprinkle a little bit of flour over the top, which isn't necessary, it just feels right to me. So after you sprinkle that flour on top, you'll want to go ahead and stick a moist towel over the top of your bowl and let it sit somewhere warm for the next hour or 2, so just find something to do for a bit. And you'll know when it's ready because it'll be really bubbly and jiggly and doubled in size. This is where I messed up. I passed out and took a nap as my something to do and forgot how long I had been asleep, and I should have let it sit for maybe another 20 minutes, but just go ahead and follow the rest of these instructions as needed. I will not be popping back in. This is the part where I normally get really locked in, and I cannot stress enough that you should make sure you're covering your surface in flour so it does not stick to your counter or whatever surface you're using, because this is a very high hydration dough, or at least semi kind of high hydration dough, so it's going to be kind of sticky and wet, and you don't want to have to deal with that cleanup. And you should always make sure that your hands have some flour on them, or some oil always helps me as well. So what I'm going to do after this is apply what's called almost not there pressure. You're going to need it for this entire thing. You're just going to help the dough out of the bowl, but not necessarily force it out, if that makes sense, because you don't want to pop or lose any of those air bubbles that are in your dough. So after this, you're going to try to gently stretch it as much as you possibly can without tearing it into a rectangle just big enough to fold over onto itself. I kind of just try to caress it like a ham or something. Just try to get it nice and stretched out into that rectangle. It's stressing me back out to rewatch this part. Once again, make sure you're being gentle. This baguette is your baby and you do not want to tear it because it will send you on a spiral if you mess this up, because it's supposed to be one of the easiest recipes possible. So here, I'm going to fold it over itself like I'm rolling up a piece of paper or folding it like a book almost into a cylinder. And then I'm just going to want to pinch up the side to create a seam right there. If you do tear on accident a little bit, don't really worry about it, you'll be fine. It's a little bit hard to work with sometimes with something so sticky. Plus, generally speaking, there's a huge learning curve with bread, and out of nowhere, you just get really good with working with dough out of nowhere. So now that we have that rolled, you'll want to go ahead and transfer that to your pan. I own a baguette pan, but I'm gonna insert a picture of what you can also do with aluminum foil to get the same effect. I just have this baguette pan because I had a phase of me being really obsessed with these. You can just set the dough into some foil and fold up the sides around it. The pan's just to hold its shape, or you can even just use a sheet pan. I absolutely hate how sticky this feels and how scared I am of this falling apart when I try to put it onto the pan from the surface, but it always pays off in the end. Making bread is honestly a really good time to sit down and reflect, and I realized when I was recording this and rewatching, I don't really like how I recorded this video, so I don't think I'm going to try it like this again. I would really love if I were talking the whole time instead of having to go back into a voiceover, but it's just really echoey in that kitchen. And I also started thinking about how dumb it was it took me this long to find a niche. I was in a phase where I was uploading on YouTube just for fun, just talking about any and everything. Mind you, I talk about baking bread and cooking every single day to my friends, and I've never thought about once recording a video. This is my first time recording myself in full length on camera making bread. So I own a bread lane to make designs, but you can do this exact same thing with a sharp knife, and you'll want to make very deep cuts into the dough itself to give it areas for the pressure to release so it won't split in half or like crack in a way you don't like. I should have cut mine a little bit deeper, but I just went into diagonals until I got to the very end. And then I preheat my oven to 480, which sounds insane to me because I don't normally put it that high unless I'm doing these. And you'll want to make sure that you put a pan of water in the bottom of your stove during the preheating and the whole cooking process, because baguettes do need some steam to rise. So I recommend getting like a cake pan and putting like 2.5 cups of water in it. And then before I put it in the oven, I do like to sprinkle a little bit of flour on the top, and then I just bake it for 30 minutes until it's golden brown and you're good to go. Yay, we have a baguette. We. Anyway, moral of the story is no matter how much practice you have doing something or how good you feel you are, you do still have a chance to mess up, but as long as you stay calm and keep going, you will be fine. So now that you know how to make a baguette, I will be seeing you guys in a few days, and I'm still getting used to being on camera for like a long period of time outside of my TikTok. So just subscribe, stick around, I will see you guys soon. Later.